2025 was extremely rich in graphics cards, as it was the year when both Nvidia and AMD launched their new generations of graphics accelerators. And besides desktop models, at least from Nvidia, their more economical laptop siblings also came along. But laptops are a special category to test because you're not just testing the components themselves. They are part of a whole, where other aspects matter compared to testing a standalone desktop graphics card, like component placement in the chassis, the cooling system which in a laptop the graphics card shares with other components, energy efficiency, and so on. Not to mention that the performance of the same components varies from one laptop to another, precisely depending on these elements. For example, an Intel Ultra 9 275HX will perform very differently from one laptop to another, depending on each portable's cooling system. And to demonstrate all this, today we will closely examine the newest powerhouse launched by Lenovo, named Legion 9i Gen 10, and which is none other than the most powerful laptop we have ever tested. The unboxing experience of the Legion 9i was a very pleasant one. The large box opens from the front and presents you with the secondary box in which the laptop sits like on a pedestal, a detail worth mentioning. The 400-watt charging brick is placed on the side and seems to be the same as the one from the Legion 7 we tested recently. Once you take it out of the secondary box, you almost instantly notice that the Legion 9i is at the limit of portability because it starts at 3.5 kilos in weight, to which you also add a literal kilogram of charger, so for this monster to be carried, you need to find a backpack spacious enough for an 18-inch laptop. The color of the Legion 9i is the simple but stylish Eclipse Black and looks really good in combination with the layered carbon fiber lid present on Lenovo's most powerful laptops for a few years now. Composed of 8 layers of carbon fiber, the lid is unique for each laptop and is not just a marketing gimmick. It is also very durable, more resistant than the aluminum alternative, and manages to save some important grams in terms of weight. In the center of the carbon plate, we also have a Legion logo illuminated, controllable from the Legion Space app. Otherwise, the design of the Legion 9i is simple, even minimalist, at least for a gaming laptop. The only elements that betray its pedigree and what it hides under the hood are the generous rear exhausts and the thickness. The hinge system is also very solid, so solid in fact that together with the carbon fiber lid it forms one of the most rigid assemblies of this kind that we have tested lately on any laptop. And one more thing, it allows the screen to be tilted back 180 degrees. It's not essential for a gaming laptop, but it's a nice to have. The price paid for this rigidity is the difficulty in opening the lid, which is almost impossible to open with just one finger. I also like the very narrow screen bezels. Because of this, the display can easily be used in multi-monitor setups, not to mention it looks cleaner in design. The upper bezel is however slightly thicker in the central area to accommodate the complex camera system that helps with 3D content playback. Oh yes, I think I actually forgot to mention the most important feature of this laptop. It has a screen that supports 3D content playback without glasses, but we'll get to that shortly. And in terms of connectivity, the Legion 9i is very well equipped, and the truth is that on such a large laptop it would have been strange not to have everything. We have one USB-A, one RJ45 Ethernet port, 2 Thunderbolt 5 USB-C ports with 140 watt power delivery and transfer speeds up to 120 Gbps, and a combo jack port for headphones and microphone on the left side. The right side is populated with 2 USB-A ports, one USB-C, an SD card reader, and the slider to cover the webcam. On the back, tucked between the cooling system exhausts, we also have an HDMI 2.1 and the power port. The positioning of these latter ones is excellent in my opinion. Moving to the interior, what makes this laptop special is the fact that you can cram up to 192 GB of RAM into it. Yes, you heard that right, 192 gigs. This is made possible by the 4 available memory slots, which can be populated with 4 sticks of 48 GB each. What are those 192 GB of RAM useful for? Well, for whatever you want. Storage is also a chapter that received attention from Lenovo. The Legion 9i has not 1, not 2, but 4 slots for fast PCI Express M.2 2280 storage SSDs. 3 of them are PCI Express Gen 4 plus one very fast Gen 5 for a total maximum of 8 terabytes of storage. But the crown jewel seems to me to be the cooling system called cold front vapor, the most advanced cooling system present on any Lenovo laptop we have tested so far. It consists of 2 main fans whose role is to expel hot air from the GPU and CPU area, plus 2 smaller fans whose main purpose is to cool the RAM, SSD and network card. Cold air is pulled in through the bottom of the laptop with fairly tall rubber feet ensuring enough distance from the surface on which the laptop sits, and the hot air is expelled through the vents on the rear edge of the laptop. That's why we don't recommend gaming on your lap or in bed, to avoid choking the cooling system's intake. Moving on to the screen, Lenovo chose to implement on this model a 3D IPS display at WQ-UXJ resolution, that is 4K in a 16:10 format, 3840 by 2400 pixels with a maximum refresh rate of 240 Hz. Other interesting specifications of this panel called Pure Sight include a 3 millisecond response time, display HDR 400 certification, Dolby Vision support and X-Rite calibration. Brightness is another category where the Lenovo Legion 9i panel performs well, namely 500 nits as measured by us. Also, for Hertz enthusiasts, know that when set to Full HD, this panel is capable of up to 440 Hz, making it ideal even for competitive gaming. Otherwise, watching multimedia content on this panel is generally a pleasant experience, with accurate color reproduction and good viewing angles, despite not being an OLED. But it is 3D, and Lenovo 3D Studio is the hub where you will find everything you need to take advantage of the 3D capabilities of the display. Configuration is simple and customizable for each user. It is recommended that the screen be recalibrated every time a new person watches content, because each of us perceives depth differently. It is also worth mentioning that the camera system tracks the eyes of a single user live, based on which it adapts the rendered image. A side effect of the 3D screen, which I only recently thought about, is that no one can peek at your screen from the side to steal your ideas, projects, whatever, as long as 3D is activated, precisely because the cameras can only track one person. 3D Studio facilitates playback of locally saved 3D content and can convert 2D to 3D or display side-by-side 3D content as long as you specify the source structure, left, right, top, down, and so on. For 2D content conversion or in gaming, there's also an AI that ensures the images are clear and as 3D as possible. Moreover, you also get a 3D model viewer, which, you guessed it already, allows you to view and interact with various 3D models. And in this context, we come to what interested us the most: games. Because 3D Studio also has a functionality dedicated to them called Game Engine. In certain games, with the help of the aforementioned AI, you can transform the 2D image into 3D, and this works surprisingly well. The list of compatible games is currently quite limited, but growing. We tested this feature in Cyberpunk 2077 and in Black Myth Wukong, and Cyberpunk, at least, being a first-person game, looked very good. Of course, depth and pop-out are adjustable to your liking, so that you have the most pleasant experience in the game. Obviously, it's impossible to reproduce here how the 3D effect created by this monitor looks, one that doesn't require glasses, so you have to take my word for it that it's actually really cool when configured correctly. And yes, it also works for glasses wearers like me. And with that being said, let's see how it performs in terms of raw performance. We stressed the Intel Core Ultra 9 275HX in both Cinebench tests precisely to monitor the performance of the cooling system, and the results achieved by the Legion Cold Front Vapor are excellent. The 38,000 points in Cinebench R23 multi-core reflect better thermal efficiency than on the ROG Strix Scar, the other 18-inch monster we tested previously, which was also based on the same 275HX. So here's what we've got. Cinebench R23, 38,000 points in multi-core with 2,148 in single-core, and in Cinebench 2024 we got 2,055 points in multi-core and 129 in single-core, all excellent values. And in Geekbench 6, the 275HX scored 2,908 points in single-core and 18,351 in multi-core, a sign the processor can keep up with all current workloads. And on the graphics side, in the daily use 3D Mark, the scores matched expectations, Worth noting are the 6,646 points in Speedway, 6,516 in Steel Nomad, 12,781 in Time Spy Extreme, and 16,520 points in Firestrike Ultra. These are slightly above the average previously obtained by the RTX 5090 Mobile, a sign that the powerful cooling system gives a bit more breathing room to this extremely powerful graphics card. And we season it further with some superposition with its 4K optimized test to complete the picture, a test in which we got a score of approximately 21,360 points. As for storage, in Crystal Disk Mark we obtained 12.2 gigs per second read speed and 13.1 write speed on the Samsung SSD provided in the PCI Express Gen 5 slot. And for the more productive among you, we also ran our 4K video rendering test project in DaVinci Resolve, and the reference times are 10 minutes and 37 seconds for the desktop RTX 5080 and 4 minutes 26 seconds for the desktop RTX 5090. Legion 9, with its 192GB of RAM, Intel Core Ultra 9 275HX and RTX 5090 Mobile, managed rendering in no more, no less than 5 minutes and 23 seconds for MP4 format and H.264 codec, or 5 minutes and 13 seconds when switching to H.265, a time that easily competes with the aforementioned desktop 5090. And so we reach the most important chapter for this laptop, namely gaming. We begin with the classic Red Dead Redemption 2, a masterpiece of a game where we achieved, without the help of upscaling techniques, an honest 71 FPS average in the native 16x10 4K of this Legion 9i. If you want more frames per second, still without DLSS and without compromising on quality, you can lower the resolution to 2K, where you will get 94 FPS, more than enough for this type of game. In Cyberpunk, however, we got 19 FPS with path tracing active and DLSS on quality, all at the native resolution of the panel, so it's not playable, so you'll need to use frame generation, which at 2x doubles your frame count to 36-38. Still unplayable in my opinion, so you need to go to multi-frame Gen 4X to exceed 60 FPS, more precisely to 67. But purists will prefer to keep the fake frames to a minimum, so most likely they lower the resolution to 2560 by 1600 to get 60 FPS with just single frame generation. Of course, you can sacrifice some ray tracing by switching to ultra mode, but when path tracing looks this good, it feels like a shame. Doom: The Dark Ages is the benchmark we didn't know we needed, and we're glad it came into our lives. We got 196 FPS without path tracing, with DLSS on quality and multi-frame gen active. With path tracing active and MFG you get 95 FPS, very playable and very cool for a single player game. If minor artifacts still bother you, you can reduce MFG to single frame generation and you'll get around 53 FPS, which is still playable in Doom: The Dark Ages. It's a bit on the edge if you ask me, because it's under 60 FPS, but hey, you can lower reflections to gain a few extra frames. We continue with F1 2024, where we got, with absolutely all settings maxed out, 55 FPS without upscaling and without frame gen. The score goes up to 81 FPS with DLSS on quality and nearly 120 with DLSS plus frame generation, values comparable to those obtained with other similar laptops tested previously. Dying Light 2 is another game I usually run for its benchmark, accompanied by graphs where various instabilities can be seen. Here we report 40 FPS without upscaling or frame generation, 70 FPS with DLSS on quality, and 104 with DLSS plus frame generation active. All of these at native resolution, meaning 3840 by 2400 pixels in high quality ray tracing mode. For this type of game, 70 FPS natively with DLSS on quality seems more than enough. You don't need frame generation. Black Myth Wukong still has that bug where part of the menu is in Chinese, so I wasn't too sure what frame generation settings were used in each test. With it on auto, at least that's what Google Lens says, we got 86 FPS at cinematic level of detail and ray tracing on high. And I'll also mention that all testing was done in the performance and extreme modes of the laptop, with power consumption maximized. And the thing is, after endless hours of synthetic tests and gaming, this Legion 9 barely got warm in the areas where the user's hands rest, meaning the keyboard and the areas surrounding it. The right side of the keyboard is a bit warmer, but you have no reason to go there because you'll be using the mouse. And since we're on the subject, this keyboard called TrueStrike is surprisingly good. And that's coming from someone like me who prefers standard keyboards and doesn't get along with low-profile laptop ones. The 1.6mm key travel, along with a moderate resistance to pressing, gives a very pleasant feel both in gaming and typing. I also appreciate the spacing between the keys, which combined with the moderate actuation force and the 1.6mm travel means fewer accidental presses. And for those desperate moments when you mash hotkeys hoping to land a clean skill in your favorite game, TrueStrike also has 100% anti-ghosting. It's obviously also RGB with per key customizable lighting, and with Legion Space you can create the wildest effects and combinations. The touchpad is massive for a gaming device and it performed excellently with support for multitask gestures and good enough to satisfy even the most demanding Ultrabook users. But we all know that any self-respecting gamer also keeps a mouse nearby. Moving on, as you can probably guess, the battery in the Legion 9i is mostly symbolic, even though it's 99 Wh. Even in silent mode, with the laptop switched to the integrated GPU and playing less demanding games like TFT or Balatro, you still can't get far from a power outlet. Many people probably wonder, man, if it's such a beast of a laptop, why doesn't it have a matching battery? It's due to limitations imposed by various regulatory bodies. If it happens to catch fire, they say it's considerably less dangerous under 100 Wh. That's one reason, and the weight issue is the other. Even with this battery, the laptop still weighs 3.5 kilograms. Fortunately, super rapid charge is pretty fast, charging the battery from 0 to 70% in just half an hour. And last but not least, the sound. The audio system of this 18-inch beast is made up of 6 speakers and sounds quite decent, well above the average of gaming laptops, with highs and mids not drowned out by bass, which I really liked. The volume is decent enough to support an online meeting or a gaming session in a quieter environment, but we still recommend a pair of headphones, especially for those playing titles where sound matters. And with that, that's about it. Legion 9i is a true powerhouse in pretty much everything related to gaming and intensive productivity like graphics or video. And something I rarely say about a laptop, in the case of Legion 9i, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. It's not just the most powerful components crammed into a chassis. It's a very well thought out assembly. I like that the interior space is very intelligently allocated, even the separation of the cooling paths for each fan is meticulously designed, all in the name of squeezing every drop of performance out of an 18-inch chassis. Yes, it's big, it's heavy, it's expensive as hell, but it's also absurdly powerful for a laptop. It starts at around $4,500 in the most basic versions and can easily go over $5,000 in top configurations. But obviously, it's not a laptop for everyone. It is the apex of mobile performance, of course, as long as 3.5 kilograms can still be considered mobility. It's for the spoiled ones who can afford to drop $5,000 or more just to play games, or for content creators, graphic designers or video editors who will earn their money back with it. But even for the rest of us, it still represents something. It's a technological marvel. It's everything you can squeeze out of the current generation of components that a laptop can accommodate. It's the moment's maximum. It's the upper limit of performance that today's technology can deliver in a portable. And you can't help but admire that. And now, tell me in the comments, what do you think of the Legion 9i Gen 10? What impression does it leave on you beyond its prohibitive price? What do you think of this idea of a glasses-free 3D screen on a gaming laptop? You tell me. We'll stop here with this video about the most powerful laptop we've ever tested. Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you and we appreciate it. And as always, I wish you happy gaming.